All right, thank you everyone, and thank you for attending the webinar today. I'm Nelson Petracek, as was mentioned, CTO of TIBCO Software, and what I'm going to do today is just kind of give you a bit of insight of TIBCO Labs and what to expect from TIBCO Labs in 2021. So just one slide on TIBCO for those that may not be familiar with the organization. TIBCO is an enterprise software company focused on delivering software capabilities to some of the largest organizations across the globe. We really focus on three core pillars of capabilities. We do have the ability to connect to any data at any time and be able to handle that data at any speed. We have the ability to offer a number of data management capabilities, whether that's around things like data catalogs, master, meta, reference data management, or even data virtualization. And we also provide a set of capabilities around what we call our predict pillar, which is really around analytics and data science. And so for us, it's all around data. Data is a first class strategy, if you will, and in allowing you to connect, unify, and predict with that data as organizations need to for today's problems. So just to talk a little bit here from a TIBCO Labs standpoint, TIBCO Labs is really around innovation, and I'll describe a little bit more about the program and the reasons why we started that program for people that may not be familiar with it. But it really is focused around innovation, and it's focused around opportunity for innovation. And regardless of what organization you're in, regardless of what vertical in which you participate, it is important and very key for you to innovate. Whether it's in order to compete, in order to engage with your customers in different ways with new business models, in order to differentiate yourself from everybody else that's out there, or even just to change perception and essentially at the end sell more to your customers and whoever else it is that you're working with. So innovation is critical, doesn't stop. Last year was a little crazy. I would say that, yeah, that wasn't exactly what any of us predicted or planned. But from a TIBCO Labs standpoint, after making a few slight adjustments, working from home full time and things like that, it was our busiest year ever. And just to give you a couple of highlights from a TIBCO Labs standpoint, these are some of the things that we worked on primarily throughout the year. Of course, we did have ongoing development and progress around our various TIBCO Labs projects, which is something I'll describe here later in the session. We created a new TIBCO Labs partner program. Not only did we want to extend the reach of labs and the innovation activities to customers, but we also wanted to offer the same capabilities to our partners. And so we formalized a program around this that really allows our partners to engage with TIBCO through TIBCO Labs. And then one of the things that we did was we built a GatherSmart application, as we call it. GatherSmart is a COVID-19 application, really helping organizations get their employees back to work safely. So it has a number of capabilities around analyzing how the business is being impacted by COVID-19 with regards to the employees, what processes are going to be utilized in order to get people back to the office, when is it safe for them to come into the office, how do you manage the office, those sorts of conditions, all those sorts of features, functions, those are all managed by TIBCO GatherSmart. And that was an application that was produced by TIBCO Labs in 2020. So just a quick update for people that may not be familiar with the program. TIBCO Labs itself is a customer and partner facing program offered by my team in the Office of the CTO as in conjunction with the Chief Data Officer and the data science team. And it's really designed to offer customers and partners the opportunity to collaborate with us on a number of different innovation topics, technology areas, and the applicability of those topics and technology areas to business problems. And so it's meant to be very collaborative. It's very much organized around research, how we can use things like IoT, cloud, augmented reality, blockchain, and so on to solve relevant business problems that organizations are facing today. We do a lot of this in a very open source and community-driven manner, and it is very much focused on real-world business use cases. A lot of our projects are actually driven by customers. And the requirements for those projects, again, are coming from real world scenarios being faced by real world customers. So the experience is really much designed to be short cycles, very iterative in nature, quick wins. The whole fail fast mentality is really designed and built into what we call the TIBCO Labs experience. So allowing organizations to explore ideas, bring their own ideas, jointly collaborate on what that might look like, put together a quick use case, prototype on that use case, and again, at the end, make a decision as to what is next. Maybe it was something that we learned a lot about, but we have to pivot and take a different direction. Or maybe even it becomes a brand new open source project, or maybe from a TIBCO standpoint, it even becomes a product feature or even a brand new product. Right? So the TIBCO Labs experience can really result in a number of different outcomes. And it is, as I mentioned, very open source and community driven. A large number of our projects, the associated source code and whatnot, is all published to GitHub, and it's available for everybody to contribute to, just like any other open source project. We also leverage a lot of open source when it comes to TIBCO Labs projects. So obviously it's a combination of certain TIBCO capabilities along with open source capabilities packaged together to provide some sort of solution for a specific technology area or for a specific set of use cases. Finally, we also believe strongly in supporting the open source community. And this is done through various events. And I'll describe some of those events as we go through this session, but things like the Open Source Community Day, various webinars, meetups, hackathons, right? We really feel strongly in participating with the community, being able to contribute back to the community, and also building awareness through the community. Right? So it's a large part of TIBCO Labs, a large part of what we do. As I mentioned, the TIBCO Labs Partner Program is a newly formed initiative really focused on allowing partners to collaborate with TIBCO and TIBCO Labs in different areas of innovation. And it's really meant to provide a number of different opportunities for partners, whether that's collaborating on a certain use case, whether that's further researching or investigating a particular technology, or hopefully as that process continues, as that experience continues, defining go-to-market and overall marketing strategies in terms of how we might offer this capability, this value to our customers as well as our partners' customers. And there's also a chance for partners to influence the direction of TIBCO products and capabilities through the use of this program. Obviously, as we're working on different use cases, we might see certain things that would be nice additions to our product and product portfolio. And that can then be an opportunity for partners to really help drive that, again, through the TIBCO Labs program. So TIBCO Labs actually includes a number of different projects. And so I've put some here on the screen just to kind of give you a quick idea of some of the areas in which we work and some of the technologies in which we participate. So for example, we have a lot of organizations that are looking to quickly build composite or task applications, as it is commonly referred to in the industry, really be able to assemble new applications from a series of building blocks. And so we've been doing a lot of work in that area. I'll describe a little bit more around what we're doing in the next slide or two. But Cloud Starters is really the core foundation of those building blocks. If I want to assemble an application that includes a little bit of analytics, a little bit of integration, a little bit of APIs, a little bit of event processing, and so on, Cloud Starters allows me to assemble a UI from these building blocks so that to the end user, it looks like a single application, of course. Right, which is really what we want. We don't want it to be seen as a set of silos, if you will. We want it to be seamlessly integrated into a single application and user experience. So that's the idea behind Cloud Starters, a framework built on open source and standard web technologies and allow you to quickly and easily build these task apps or these composite applications. Discover is really focused around process mining. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Discover in a moment. But for now, I'll just mention it. It is heavily focused on the area of process mining, which is often a precursor to many digital transformation strategies. Cloud Conversations is really based on allowing you to query a graph of data and to do so using techniques like natural language processing and grammars. A lot of organizations today are looking to represent data as graphs and treat relationships as first-class citizens. And so Cloud Conversations allows you to ask that graph questions and allows you to interact with data in a very different way. Graph Builder, as you see in the bottom right, is actually related. It allows you to take enterprise data and transform that into a graph, which then can be run in graph databases, a number of the open source ones, and also, of course, including our own. Dovetail is focused on blockchain, and I'll talk about that here in a moment as well. AutoML, of course, is an area of data science, which allows you to allow the product to introspect and review the data and actually compare different analytical models against one another in order to select the best one for whatever the business problem is that you're trying to solve. So AutoML is a great time-saving feature to help you do that. AIR is around IoT and edge analytics, and I will describe that one also here in a moment, because obviously that is a very hot topic, especially with the emergence of 5G and related technologies. Journey is around the journey of an entity, I'm going to call it. Could be a customer, could be a passenger. We even have a use case where it is a criminal. So imagine a criminal journey. Those are all different aspects of which this particular solution can track and manage. And then art is around augmented reality. So driving enriched experiences, immersive experiences with our customers, right? Allowing that combination of digital with reality, right? The real world, and overlaying the two together. You know, how do I provide data that's relevant and contextual to what it is that individual is focused on? So these are a number of different projects that exist under the TIBCO Labs portfolio. And what we did for 2021 is really picked 4 primary areas that we wanted to focus on. And this is largely driven by customer demand. This is largely driven by different use cases that we're seeing, different trends in the industry, and so on. So these were the 4 that we're really focusing on for 2021. Doesn't mean we're not doing work in the other ones, because we definitely are, but these are going to be the key focus areas that you're going to see in each quarter for this particular year. So edge analytics is, of course, a hot topic. Things like blockchain with Project Dovetail, Project Discover for process mining, and then the whole notion of smart apps. And I will describe what that is here in a moment. Okay, so from an IoT standpoint, if I'm looking at edge analytics, we have released a project called Project AIR, which is really meant to address different problems around the processing of IoT data. So the idea here is, of course, is as I'm receiving IoT data, I can't take all that data, move it all to a cloud environment, process it there, and then maybe push a decision back down to the device to make an adjustment, right? That process is just, quite frankly, too long. It's actually going to be potentially a huge amount of data as well. And some of that data may just be simply noise that just doesn't matter to me. And so what I want to do is, of course, push a lot of that processing close to the device. It might be actually on the device, or it might be at a gateway that's located close to the device. And it's much more than just taking that data and maybe transforming it and then forwarding it. And what a lot of organizations are doing now is actually looking at how they can run analytics at the edge. So for example, we're doing some work in the computer vision space with a couple of partners. And what we want to do is use computer vision techniques at the edge to do things like manage quality control. So if I have products that are going by in a conveyor belt, and I can use a camera to look at those products, as they're going by, I can take that image, whether it's video or a still image, analyze it and look for defects on that product, right? Based upon maybe a training set of images that I used previously in order to build that model. So Project AIR is really focused on this idea of being able to take a model from any source, could be a Python model, could be TensorFlow, could be whatever it is, package that up as a container, wire together multiple models in order to get what we call an overall data pipeline, and then deploy that data pipeline at the edge. So I can do streaming, I can do inferencing, I can do rules, I can do transformation, I can do all of that at the edge, and then forward any relevant information, alerts, notifications, the raw data itself, whatever it is I need to do, forward that to my cloud environment for subsequent processing. So that's a key part of what Project AIR is focused on. And so as an example, we recently did a joint announcement with AWS at reInvent here just at the end of last year. They announced a series of new services. And a couple of those services, AWS Panorama and Lookout for Vision, these are really focused on computer vision. So Panorama is an actual appliance that you hook your cameras into, and then they can process the streams of video feed that are coming off of there. And then Lookout for Vision allows you to do anomaly detection based on images that, again, could be coming across based on snapshots that you've taken on a manufacturing floor. And so these capabilities from Amazon we're combining them with Project Air and building this end-to-end solution around edge analytics and how you can then take that data and not only process it at the edge, but also forward it to the cloud for subsequent processing. Architecturally, if you look at it quickly, on the left-hand side, of course, you have all the edge devices, the gateways, and so on. On the right-hand side, you have the cloud. You might have different data stores. You might do additional processing on the cloud. And you may also have some of the Project Air components. And then in the middle, you effectively have that data pipeline where you're connecting to the devices or even running on the devices, handling that stream of data that's coming, performing different model executions against that stream of data, and then forwarding that, of course, to downstream systems. Now, for us, Project Air is actually based on the EdgeX Foundry platform, which is an open source platform from the Linux Foundation, used by a large number of organizations, or a number of organizations to provide IoT capabilities. And so we definitely, in this case, leverage open source as part of the Project Air solution. So moving on, if we switch gears a little bit to blockchain, it's interesting. We still do see a number of use cases around blockchain, some research as to its use within the enterprise. And so we have further developed Project Dovetail in order to support those enterprise blockchain use cases. So to give you an idea, some of the things that we've been doing, obviously a large part of the power of Dovetail is its ability to use a very model-driven paradigm to develop smart contracts, right? Business logic that's actually going to run within the blockchain network itself. And so we've furthered the types of models and the way in which you can define these models. We've introduced further capabilities in Dovetail around that area, whether it's through additional extensions, introduction of a domain-specific language specifically for modeling smart contracts. And then a lot of this we've actually done in the context of what we refer to as a digital twin. So the idea of having a digital representation of some sort of business entity. And there are a series of examples of which blockchain can augment a digital twin deployment, especially in cases where that digital twin spans multiple organizations. So Dovetail has evolved to kind of fit and match those types of use cases. Also for use cases that require these blockchains to be exposed via a set of APIs, whether those are traditional kind of REST APIs or event-driven APIs. And again, this is really based upon this idea of supporting a parallel digital twin deployment, right? A digital twin that's not just for simulation, but also used for kind of mimicking, if you will, something that's going on in the real world. We're also working on some other cool stuff. It's a little early to kind of talk about it yet, but we have some other research projects going on with blockchain and its applicability in the enterprise context. And so stay tuned for those. There'll be more announcements throughout the year to come in that particular area. Project Discover, as I mentioned, is really around process mining. And this is interesting because the area of process mining is actually not new. It's been around for obviously quite some time. But a lot of organizations are really revisiting this as a way to kick off or to kind of a stage one of their digital transformation journey. It's hard to modify your business processes. It's hard to optimize your business processes or design new processes to support different business models if you don't know what those processes are in the first place. And so in the case of Project Discover, we can actually take a bunch of application logs from a variety of different sources, correlate those logs together, and really derive not just the way your business processes are performing, but all the different combinations or what they call variants of those processes. So your processes are likely not just following one single path every single time. There's likely different ways that people have found to execute on certain business processes, and you want to understand what those are, whether it's for the purposes of optimization or even things like regulatory compliance. So I find that Project Discover is a nice, easy way to first understand what it is that you have. What is your problem with your processes and resource utilization and so on. And then from there, you can then optimize as you need to. And then, of course, come back to this to understand what impact your optimizations had on the overall business. So it's definitely something we do see a lot of interest in. You see a lot of interest even with things like migrations. So as people migrate from applications that might be on-prem, like ERP systems, as you migrate that to the cloud, that's a great opportunity to optimize those business processes and potentially refactor or rework them. And process mining can really help you discover where you're starting from. The other thing that we do is we use a lot of our other capabilities to further enrich how Process Discover can access and process data. So whether that's using our data virtualization technology to connect to hundreds of different data sources, we also leverage open source capabilities such as Spark and Kubernetes for a lot of our processing, and then also integrate capabilities like our data catalog for managing business and technical metadata. GatherSmart, as I described, was really an application that we built to support organizations looking to get their employees back to work safely during the pandemic. But it was also a precursor to what we are calling smart applications. So these smart applications are composite applications. I described this earlier in the context of cloud starters, where I want to be able to quickly assemble new applications, which are maybe more targeted at a specific use case or a specific business problem. I want to be able to quickly assemble these applications, though they're combinations of other functions, whether again it's analytics or rules or integration or different APIs or case management style applications or whatever it is. I want to be able to quickly assemble these things from these building blocks. And so Cloud Starters from TIBCO Labs is a mechanism that allows you to do that, right? Quickly assemble the user interfaces that need to support these kinds of applications. But of course, we're going to continue this development. And so if you are looking to build rich analytical applications, Spotfire from TIBCO is a great container to do that. And so we've introduced an open framework called mods. Anybody in the gaming industry will recognize that term. But we have an open framework that really allows you to build custom visualizations and then embed those in the Spotfire environment. And now Spotfire becomes, again, another vehicle for delivering these smart apps or these rich analytical applications. So that's a little bit about TIBCO Labs in 2021. It is around innovation. It's around leading with innovation. Innovation, as we all know, is difficult. It can be difficult to find the time. It can be difficult to figure out how to prioritize it with the other thousands of things that we're all doing on a regular basis. But as I always say, the risk of not innovating is much higher. I've seen many cases where organizations did not spend the time to innovate, were not researching new topics and technologies, and quite frankly, as a result, just fell behind. Just a few assets to kind of support the update and whatnot from today. We do have some materials and a white paper around this whole idea of digital twins, how blockchain can support the concept of a digital twin. But the white paper also gets into other technologies that you can use to build a digital twin, whether it's a real-time event hub, whether it's messaging, whether it's integration, data science, even process mining. How do I utilize those different capabilities to build an overall end-to-end digital twin solution? So there is a freely available white paper for that. We are holding 2 events this year when it comes to our open source community days. These are very much focused on presentations, demos, tech talks, panels from a number of organizations, all around the open source and open source community. So organizations like Microsoft, AWS, Google, and a series of other ones will hold and deliver presentations throughout this day. We've also got some fun little things that might show up around augmented reality and a game or two that might also be part of these sessions. So be sure to come and check it out. Sign up, register. Again, it's freely available to everybody. And then finally, we do have a number of resources that are available to everybody. Just more information about the projects, whether it's on our website, whether it's on our TIBCO Labs GitHub site. Of course, we do a lot of these quarterly webinars, so look for those in the future. And we do host a number of events and whatnot via Meetup as well. So anything from 5-minute tech talks to much more in-depth demos and conversations. So with that, I just want to appreciate everybody taking the time out today to join this particular call. And with that, I think we will, I'll turn it back over to Aaron and we'll look to see if we have any questions. So again, appreciate it, everybody, and we'll now take some questions.